heard somewhere that low and zero carbon technology, LZC, is the term given to technologies that emit low levels of CO2 emissions or no net CO2 emissions. The incorporation of these technologies is more effective within buildings with highly energy efficient fabric after heat, demand and loss have been reduced to a minimum. And then finding and removing this carbon across the business system. Approaching net zero requirement that requires companies to take a comprehensive look at their system from product design and supply chain to manufacturing and operation in order to determine whether and where the carbon is and the best method for removing it. So Dr. Kumar, would you like to comment on these things? Low LZC.
I agree with you. Some of these terminologies are being reinvented, but we have starting point is what benchmarking we are doing. So for example, it was a very typical processes that any time you want to write a proposal to DST, you would say cost effective this technology, low cost this. So low cost compared to what? So the starting point for a country like ours would be that for a given CO2 levels, what is that the low cost that we are talking about, and then we built on it.
So I would like to request the audience and delegates to ask their queries to our panelists.
You have shown the various data and the various emission patterns and details which is there. The second largest one which is coming is the Indian agricultural sector, as in terms of carbon emission. And you can say that the biggest carbon emitters. So what are the forward way to reduce the carbon emission? What kind of technology innovations is getting done for reducing the carbon emission from the agricultural sector? And how economically it is viable?
Your question is targeted to?
Yeah,
Dr. Rakesh Kumar.
Okay.
So very loaded question. Although this whole debate today is on industries, and agriculture has always been kept aside. So agriculture, livestock has always been kept aside. But if at all we have to do, I'm coming to your point. So if at all we have to do anything in agriculture sector emission reduction, that is where IPCC report also recognizes the highest potential sector. Because in traditional industry sector, the abatement is much lower potential compared to the baseline. So in agriculture sector, unless until we start thinking in an industry's fashion, we will find it very difficult to abate. And that's where the counting of chicken has to start. How many livestock, some of the numbers which have been thrown elsewhere is our livestock multiplied by so much of so-called cow dung, then so much of methane, and therefore India is emitting so much. And that's a normal calculation. They have used the emission factors of the dairy industry, which they have typically done in Europe, which is a concentrated place where they grow animals in a normal, the way we do it for chicken here. So for any abatement exercise, whether we do for agroforestry and agriculture and the soil, we will have to think in an industrial fashion. And there are some talk, I will not say it's a very preliminary level we have to start thinking about. How do we do it in a decentralized fashion so that it makes sense? The industries per se is centralized. But in this sector, we have to think industries like, but in a decentralized fashion. So at village level, biomass utilization, at village level, if we can do supply chain management using, say, solar-based, say, cold storages. I think those are the kind of things which will make a big difference in a country like ours. I don't have the complete answer for your question. Probably all of us will have to work on that.
No, the reason is why I'm here because many of you or all the panelists have just forgiving about the agriculture as an industry. It's once again, it's a part of an industrial sector now, as the government of India has already mentioned that. So everybody is talking about the road transportations, fuels, and everything. But the second one, which is, as Minister has also mentioned that we have to also look at that. Okay, how the Indian rural economy can be, potentialized in terms of carbon reductions and carbon emission. So my, question is only about that. So if you can just consider that and any technology innovations can be done in related to that, it will be great.
So a lot of work has been done. It's just that we have not done scaling up. And I think Honorable Minister also mentioned, and many other people also point this out, that how do we do a scale up which makes economic sense, right? So we have had an example of so-called biologically originated fertilizers, right? Or milk production, for example. So these are the ones which were done in a cooperative fashion. The challenge is for climate change mitigation in agriculture sector, can we do it in an industrial fashion? And that's where we have to all work. The one size will not fit at all. Every state is different, every place is different, every region is different. So we have to devise different methods for this.
So this, as you are already representing the CSIR labs, and which is one of the major research institutions who's working in this. So if you can just pass out these information to your department or this, it will be great.
We'll do. Sure.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
already the third question, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, please, ma'am.
So good afternoon, Dr. Sharma. Very wonderful presentation and very unique work you have carried out. So I just would like to ask about various ozone precursor emissions sector-wise. So what are the various precursors you've been considering? But I couldn't see the list of the precursors. You mentioned CEO and others, but how about CFCs and other things?
What I showed you is not our work, is actually a paper from the Chandra Venkataraman's group actually in IIT Bombay. But there are the methods, through which you can compute. So what point I wanted to drive is to have a decentralized inventory of all those species. Because, to have a decision support system, because the air quality is a very local issue, Unlike the greenhouse gases, which is a global issue, we talk about global climate now. But for these short-lived gases, is the air quality is the important issue. Air quality is a very region or specific. And you need to have inputs, on the inventories, how much is coming out at that level. So that is actually, I wanted to drive at this point that we should have these efforts to have, for example, for mega cities we have, for Delhi, Bombay, a lot of inventories are available. So even for this ozone precursor gases is there. In fact, we also have several papers published in it. I can share with you as if you want that. So.
Yeah, but I think this is a very difficult kind of proposition to have inventory of all ozone precursors. So I just wanted to know how you're doing it.
Tyagi wants to make some intervention.
I'll take final question from Dr. Balyan, sir. So,
Just one question.
Yes,
Dr. Sharma.
Yeah.
sir, take the mic, please.
Regarding standards,
Yes, sir.
I would say for those kind of contaminants which are worldwide known, you talked about standards. So are our standards different than the international standards? If yes, then why they are different actually?
No, standards have to be same.
Ah.
Okay, and all standards have to be traceable to each other. Okay, that's why they are standards.
Yeah.
So the standards are same.
No, I somehow got a feeling from your presentation that for the different pollutants,
Okay.
Indian standards are different, are compared to the other internationally followed
It's
standards.
not the standards, the ranges which, because the Central Pollution Control Board identified the ranges, for which these SAMs or the equipment which need to be used for monitoring those ones.
No, that is the sensitivity of the instrument to measure.
So that's not a standard actually.
Yeah,
That's not.
but
a standard.
standards are similar.
Standards are same. Standards same. That's why
No difference.
the one measurement is similar to the same or traceable to the other measurements. That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Because of high demand, one last question. And rest.
This is not question.
Yeah, please.
What madam was asking, only just elaborating on behalf of Dr. Semendra Sharma. The precursor to the ozone. He has already told CO, NOx, etc. But main precursors are the VOCs, non-methanic hydrocarbons and VOCs, and their sources are both natural and anthropogenic, means from industries, petroleum, petrochemicals, refineries, pharmaceuticals, wherever organic solvents are used. And they are emitted to the environment. And when they react with the NOx, in presence of the sunlight, they form ozone. So ozone is not the direct pollutant, it is a secondary pollutant. And these sources, which are both type natural and man-made, cause chemical reaction in the presence of sunlight only during the daylight. So these are the, but Madam has raised very important question. We don't have any dedicated monitoring network for the ozone precursor in India, like other countries have. In Western countries, US, Europe, Canada, they have dedicated precursor monitoring. So we had 2 workshops also, even after retirement, one in Delhi and one in Bombay, and very big like this. But in spite of that, and commitment also by the member secretary of the CPCB, it was decided that we should start at least from 6 cities, like on the line of source apportionment study. So there is a need, great need of monitoring of the ozone precursors in India. So I support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.